Good morning, Mama.
Morning.
My name is Fundi from the Dr. Fundi channel. Today, we are here at your house at Cove Rock, just outside of East London. We're here to fulfill, a wish that your story be captured, your life and professional story be captured as much as possible. You've done so already in your book, Dream Fulfilled, but there's been other things that have happened because you never stopped working. So, but we are going to have this interview that is at different stages, looking at different stages of your life. So, Mama, I just want you, for the benefit of the people who are going to be watching, this mini documentary about your life. Just tell them who you are, where were you born, in the kind of family you were born into, whether you're a firstborn or lastborn, and what values were instilled in you growing up, Ekai.
Right. First of all, my name is Marina Xaba-Mokoena. Xaba, born Xaba, but married to Mokoena.
Yes.
Now, I am born in Willowvale, which is in
Gajani.
Gajani. And my parents were Dr. Rotoli John Xaba and Mrs. Mildred Abigail Tenjwe Xaba ni Mvambo. Her father, that is my mother's father now, was a minister of religion. And as you know, most ministers of religion before, they had been teachers before.
Yes.
But he was a minister of religion, and he had even been an editor of a newspaper called Umthunywa in Transkei.
Yes.
Now, from my father's side now, my father was born in Ngadu, the place, Park Omkhulu, in Ngadu. And
is that in Dutjwa?
In Willowvale.
Willowvale,
It's
okay.
in Willowvale. Park Omkhulu waqaleka kanye. Yes. Although the Xabas came, actually, it's a long history.
Yes.
Take that history of the Xabas.
Yes.
They came from, let's just take from Lovedale, and then they migrated with their father, and one Reverend Lund was Presbyterian, came with my grandfather now.
Yes.
And then my father then came with his brothers.
Yes.
And they settled in Malan Mission, which is in Ngadu.
Yes.
Then, let me not probably go back now to my grandparents. Let me stick to my parents and myself, all right.
Yes.
Now, my father was a doctor, a general practitioner, who studied his medicine in Edinburgh, and that is Edinburgh and Glasgow in Scotland.
So the early stock of medical doctors.
He was actually the 23rd doctor of non-white doctors in South Africa.
Beautiful.
Because all the doctors before were whites, and it was regarded that medicine could be done only by whites.
Yes.
And there was no way of making
a native
to study medicine in South Africa.
Yes.
So all those, I've got a list of them here, of the first doctors that studied. Now, my father had studied to be a teacher.
Yes.
And he taught in Lovedale and then went to Swaziland.
Yes.
Then somehow he and his elder brother, Reverend Xaba, they decided to go overseas, let me put it that way, to America.
Yes.
And in order to get there, they had to make themselves to be hired in the boat to make beds.
Yes.
That was the way to get their ticket of
getting to America.
When he got there, at any rate, then he studied a Bachelor of Arts degree, which he got at the University of Ohio.
Yes.
And when it finished, his brother then became a minister of religion himself.
Yes.
And then when he had finished, he had been encouraged already before he left by this Reverend Lund that he should study medicine. I don't know what he saw in him. And with my father, when I go back to what is written for the medical journal himself, he said most of our people were dying because of what one can call superstitions.
Yes.
And they would believe that one is being killed by somebody instead of probably preventing the way of getting ill.
Yes.
So this worried my father very much. Okay, he wanted to do medicine, and he went. There was no way of doing it in America somehow, I don't know why. Then he went to Scotland.
Yes.
And then he was hiring their accommodation with landlords, and he was taken at the schools in Edinburgh. And he continued with his studies. It was very difficult because he didn't have the funds.
Yes.
So during the holidays, he would go to America to go and get work there. And then when the holidays were over, he'd go
back to Scotland.
To Scotland again. And it's used to narrate to us how, in the beginning, he used to work in a farm where he would milk cows up to 20. In those days, there were not these machines for milking.
Yes.
You know? So you say you would milk until your fingers were numb.
Yes.
You know? But all the same, he would go back again.
Yes.
The other time when he went back there, he was working in elevators.
Yes.
And I think these are lifts, you know.
Yes.
And you take people up and down.
Yes.
You know? So I'd work with that and then go back.
So you've got that strong background of association with medicine in your family, because utata
ambitious people.
Yes.
That's where I'm
Utata wayengugqirha. Umama.
Mama was a lady teacher.
Yes.
My mother studied what they call that third year course before at Hilltown Institution.
Yes.
I remember she studied with Miss Mashika, who was our lady superintendent when I was in Hilltown.
Yes.
And then she went on afterwards to do junior certificate.
Yes.
JC,
which was the equivalent of standard 8 or grade 10 nowadays.
8 to 9.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I think, because they're trying to turn the metric now, which is the metric side. She did it at 40. It was done at 40 during those days.
Yes.
And so that's what she did. So she was a lady teacher.
Yes.
And she got quite influenced and friendly with people like Mrs. Jabavu, Mrs. Matthews.
Those are all the leading thinkers of those days. About ZK Matthews,
exactly.
A.C. Jordan, about Jabavu.
That's right.
You know, people who brought education to this part of the world.
To this part of the world.
Yes.
So even when I got to 40, for instance, Mrs. Matthews, who knew me immediately when I said, are you the daughter of Tenzwe?
Yes.
And she knew my mother and so on.
Yes, beautiful.
Okay.
So, siblings, Mama, you know how many kids, abaphuma kutata no mama
wa? There were 7 of us.
Yes.
Now, I was still coming, but you cut me short, you know. Because
sorry, ma'am.
Now, my father, just a year before he finished his medicine,
yes,
his father got ill.
Yes.
Because he used to get money also from him. They would sell cattle and send money to him whilst he was there.
Yes.
So his father got ill, and he discovered when he got here that his father had had a stroke.
Yes.
So he came back home, and his father eventually died in 1930.
Yes.
And in 1930 he got married.
Yes.
And then there was born my brother,
yes,
and Orvul Ndlela, whose son also became a doctor later on.
Yes.
And then my sister, Mrs. Hongo,
yes,
actually got married to a doctor,
yes,
and one of his children is a doctor also.
Yes, Unanaza.
So I've actually got 2 brothers-in-law who are doctors.
Yes.
Right, now I'm still coming to the motive.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
Give us this foundation, Mama, it's very important.
So I don't even know now where I was.
No, you are still talking about your family, and then Wabuya Utata was apa, but his dad had a stroke and later died.
Exactly. His problem now was to go back to Edinburgh to go and finish
the final year.
Because again he could not do it in South Africa because of apartheid.
Yes, because the color of the skin.
Color of his skin. Because there were medical schools here. There was UCT, there was Wits, but he couldn't. Wits only started black or non-white people in 1940, and even then it was taking mostly colors.
Yes.
But as for UCT, it hadn't started then. Then when it did start, then they would take a negligible number of non-whites.
Of black people, yes.
So that was his problem. So then my father went back. Then my mother went with his father to Cape Town. His father was a minister.
Yes.
So he was in Langa. So my mother was teaching there in Langa.
Yes.
We had these two children, and my father went to finish his medicine.
Yes.
He returned. He went there just for a little over a year, and he completed his medicine.
Beautiful.
And he graduated in 1936.
Mm.
And then he returned. When he returned, the first child that was born now after his return was me.
Mm.
That was why I was called Nolwandle.
Oh yes,
And
it's not because
Marina.
uyophela i-retirement home yakho
No.
ingaselwandle.
No. That's one thing. I tended now to always adore and like the sea.
The sea.
Even when I retired, I felt I'm going to go and retire in a place with a sea.
Yes.
And I thought then if I go to places with towns, probably Port Elizabeth, it's too windy.
Yeah.
Cape Town, it's too cold and it's far away from home.
Yeah.
And then Durban is too hot.
Mm.
And I know I'd done my nursing there.
Yes.
And also far. So it ended up it had to be East London.
Yes,
Towards
which
East
is
London.
hardly 3 hours away from where you were born.
Absolutely.
Ukajana.
Less than this, about 2.5 hours. You were then I'm at home.
Yes.
So I can get home. Even now, we were there on the 1st and 2nd of October.
Yes.
We were unveiling tombstones
Yes.
of relatives,
Yes.
my sister-in-law, etc.
Yes. Yes.
etc.
Yes.
So that was the thing. So I was trying just to bring you
Yes.
back. Now, so after me, then there were 4 other children. There was Noma Shlubi.
Yes.
There was Washlubis. She was Mrs. Teza. Then there was Nozenzele,
Yes.
Mrs. Kali.
Yes, ulabexu.
Ulaphe Montingu.
Oh yes.
Wayesegcuwa.
Yes. Wife to
married
Dr.
to
Aubrey.
Dr. Aubrey Kali.
Yes.
Yeah, you seem to know my family.
Yes, I know them.
And then it was Mrs.
After
Mtoko.
Kali, yes.
After Kali, Oliswa, who
Yes.
became Mrs. Mtoko.
Yes.
Inamtata Itohan.
Yes.
Yabona? And then the last one was Zanele, Gloria and what one do Zanele.
Yeah.
Now you see, it was 1 boy and 6 girls.
Yo.
Now they were all the time trying to get a second boy.
Yeah.
You know what Africans say?
Yeah.
Like, if you haven't got a boy, it's
you-
like you haven't got anything.
Yeah.
Those days, I'm
Those
not saying
days,
this guy,
yes, yes.
So there was only 1 boy at home, the first one.
And 5
you
girls.
don't know, maybe he might die or he
Yeah.
might go to the mines and collapse there.
Yeah.
So they wanted to have a second boy, but they tried and tried and tried until they said Domzanel because
Yeah.
now
It's just
they were
enough
just
of the
coming-
girls.
Enough of girls. So then that was Domzanel.
Yeah.
Now out of that 7, there's only 2 of us remaining now.
Yes.
It's myself and Mrs. Kali.
Yes,
Nozenzele.
yes.
You're going to
Umama
see him
Nozenzele.
tonight.
To
She's
Zambon,
going to be
yes,
there.
yes.
Yes.
Umama kagugu.
Umama kaGugwe naye, the
Yes.
daughter is a doctor.
She's a
She's a
neonatologist.
neonatologist in
Yes.
Tigerberg.
Yes,
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 you know,
yes,
she
yes.
specialized in pediatrics.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's the brief history now of
Of the family.
nearest family.
Family, yes.
Yes.
But what would you say are the values or principles enafundiswa zona xa nikhula pha ezinincedileyo in as you navigate ubomi with all
One.
the dreams you had?
Without education, you are nothing.
Yes.
And secondly, hard work.
Education, hard work,
And you just also got to be determined.
determined.
If you're
Because I
determined to
see
do it-
in your story,
Yeah.
there's many times you wanted to give up.
Yes.
You know, like when you were, I think it was King Edward.
Edward,
You were just traumatized by the number of deaths. Or I was born up
things.
and you wanted to give up.
Give
So
up.
determination very important.
Determination. So you got to have an insight. You must focus. You
Yes.
put it that way.
Yes.
So those are the things. And then, of course, honesty
Yes.
and respect.
Yes.
Respect other people,
Mm.
then they respect you
Yes.
also.
Beautiful.
And whether they're old or young,
Yes.
respect.
Yes.
And then lift as you rise.
Yes.
You know, when you are going up, if you do succeed,
Yes.
then don't want to go up alone.
Yes.
And be there because kuyabanda pha phezulu.
Yes.
You are all by
And
yourself.
bambalwa abantu.
Bambalwa.
Yeah.
So you must try and go up with the rest of the people.
Yes.
And that, my mother was very much for that
Yeah.
in her organization. Now my mother became as I said, she was a teacher. She also was a leader in church.
Yes.
She was a Sunday school teacher. She was a girl guider.
Yeah.
And then she was, for a long time, a general secretary, but then by the time she died, she was president of umbutho kwakuthiwa uzenzele.
Yes, ndiyakhumbula ngexesha seTranskei uzenzele.
That motto, it really tried to bring up the standard of the people of Transkei, all of them, you know. And if you remember, during that time of the war, the scarcity even of soap and this, and they knew how to make soap, you know. Taramafute akwa, azanyiswe aqina ebeyisiphu ufaka iglow bathini bayebesenza yona benza ibhatha benza icakes. Then they were taught all things to sew. My mother could sew wedding dresses. She could sew, she could poppy or these dolls that children now get from the shops. She used to make them for us. She would sew them, especially once we went to sleep, because sometimes they were going to be our Christmas presents. So we mustn't see these Christmas presents. So they would be sewn at night, and she would be sewing. And the machines then, with the sewing machines, you used your hand, not these electric ones. The ones now you use, which are much easier. But she would do that. She loved gardening. And she, vegetables, flowers, everything was done at home. And you know, when patients came to my father, for instance, some of them didn't have money to pay him with. Despite the fact that he was charging 5 rand. You know, it's 5 rand nowadays. I don't know what it was. 50 cents. Whatever it was called those days. 5 shillings, and so on. I think he was charging 5 shillings for adults and 2 and 6 for a child. Some of them would bring eggs in a basin. Please, I'll pay you with this. You know, omnia with a bowl of tomatoes. Omnia with a bowl of peas. And my father would say, these things, you actually need them yourself. You should be eating them because, you know, you need malnutrition, but sometimes you'll be forced to accept that.
As a form of payment.
As a form of payment, you know. And many of them, they're all right to pay. So much so that when he died, I remember I looked at his book and there were so many to pay. And some of them honestly came to pay still. But many, of course, disappeared.
That was philanthropy at its best. You know,
telling you.
And mama ingati why community build mama.
Oh, great. If there's anything that can be said about her community build, but as I said, she had got it already from those ladies. I've been mentioning Baba Fundi and so forth. And this federation of theirs actually combined even Swaziland and Lesotho. And they would have a triennial conferences with those other countries and meet. But otherwise they met once a year. In the local and naturally they were meeting monthly and teaching one another.
That's not the reason why you ended up getting married to Elliot was connections
No, it didn't really work out that way.
Okay, all right. Let's move to your early education, ma'am. You know, uzalwane eWilloville uGatyana, but kukho isikolo osibabazayo wafunda kuso okuthiwa Davis Higher Primary School esasiphethwe nguMr. W.S. Mbanga. What role did uMbanga play ebomini bakho ufunda kwesa sikolo?
Mr. Mbanga, first of all, he was a very strict teacher. He was very neat. Wawubabona nemoto yakhe inamavili amhlophe, you know, and ehlele mhlophe all the time like that. And he happened then I don't know how they happened to know my parents. They made friends with my parents. Fortunately, I had relatives in Mission by Echo.
So your uncle and aunt.
So isikolo saGatyana sasiphela ku4. But enenengenene real kwangafundiswa phayana, especially from standard 3 onwards. Oh, and Fundi to be some so let me leave that one.
Let me tool.
So most of us at home, when we got to standard 4, we were taken out.
Yes, was you went to Hilltown Primary School. Sorry, Missionary Institute. Sorry.
Yeah, and for secondary education.
Okay.
So my brother, for instance, Funda at Fort Malan.
Yes.
Sister mama kananazalo wawuhlale eGreenstone kwaMahlasela umama udade bomama wethathelwe kwaMahlasela wawufuna from standard 4 most of us asifundanga ekhaya kodwa isikole besiphela u4 sona kodwa bekudlalisa nje phakathi bengafundi so ndaqala u4 eGcuwa ke ngoku emission and I did my standard 4 5 and 6
yes.
And then when I was in standard 5 the inspector came, Mr. Kelly, and when he came he said, in various ways, he said, oh, you are wasting this child's time in standard 5. Let's promote her to standard 6. So I did standard 5 and 6.
Those days, you know, if we were just too good,
yes,
it was normal to be made to skip a class.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so you were one of those people who were beneficiary of those.
Yes, and I passed still with first class, you know. And then I went to Hilltown.
To Hilltown.
Missionary Institution.
I think it's important to talk about that one because Hilltown, it's one of those institutions that are linked with a history to South Africa. I mean, people like Mandela,
yes,
whom you later had friendships with after a president of South Africa, went through that school. You know, your Nane Lovedale.
Yes.
Your Nane Lovedale.
Yes. In fact, the main school then was Hilltown, Lovedale.
Yes.
And then there was St. Matthew's,
yes,
which was considered probably more on teaching and things like that.
Yes.
Then we Fort Cox.
Fort Cox, yes.
But when we had sports, for instance, then we were playing these 4 schools. Then of course there was Forte,
yes,
which was University College.
University College of Forte.
Forte.
But those days, to get admitted to Hilltown, the competition was very high.
It was high,
because you had to be the best of the best.
Yes. But there were other schools. I'm
yes,
not going to look down upon them.
Yes.
There were secondary schools and so like the Showbury,
Clarkbury,
etc., etc.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
Blythswood,
yes,
and so forth. But these schools, of course,
they were the premium schools.
Those Hilltown
yes.
and
so, and you got there at the age of 11, ma'am.
That's true.
You know, and yes, and wahlala apho wathi wayogqiba imatric at the age of 15.
That's correct.
Now, any highlights during your time upha enantsikeni Hilltown? Nje highlights zakho as a student, whether it's in academics or in sports or in debating or anything, nje highlights for when?
Well, at Hilltown, really, I guess I was the youngest for a start.
Yes.
Amongst the girls, and many of them, they kind of protected me. Some they knew my parents at home and so on, because when we got there, even the mattresses we had going to sleep on. There was koya we had to.
Yes.
There's kazi koya.
Yes.
So for mattresses and so on.
Yes.
There were days for washing. There were days for ironing and so on. And when I found the days for ironing, they would help me with my ironing.
Because also
you know. And I remember there was even a private room there where girls went to when they were menstruating. I couldn't enter that room. I wasn't allowed to go there. And
because it was still before menarche.
Before me. And so there were lots of things. Then sort of they wondered, they felt sorry for me. In a way, it spoiled me. But I participated in sport, but I'm not so much of a sportsman like my brother was. My brother was a great sportsman. Soccer, rugby, he was very good in this. But I played tennis court and I don't know what else.
But so, you didn't excel lapho.
No,
you participated when I
was a mathematician.
Yes.
That's why I used to, in the afternoon, would go and study, learning. We'd go and study. And then those who couldn't master mathematics, they would call me and I'd come and teach them and say, look, let's do it this way. And then if they can't find it, say, all right, let's do it another way, so that you'll see we get to the same answer. And so I used to help them with mathematics. I had a maths prize at Hilltown. And I think that was why probably when my father died, I was helped by this Miss Blansom, who was my mathematics teacher.
Yes,
who just felt that I could just drop in the middle like that.
Yes, and helped to pay your fees.
My fees,
you know, to finish.
Yes, to
and up until ungena first year as a Fort.
First year at Fort. Emveni koko wathatha usister wam uNozenzele. And we all seem to get maths prizes there at home.
Yeah.
I must say, I think my brother had, Nozenzele also got that maths prize. I had also. And so we were very good in mathematics.
Yes.
I don't know if you are now.
But I understand though, pa down. After